Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. Welcome to the show, man. I got John Karpov here, a good friend of mine. I've been wanting to get him on the show for a long time. He is an unbelievable story. The first time I met you, John, we clicked right away, like brothers from another mother, and just so much in common. But beyond, sport and just our past and business and all that kind of stuff. But you've got, just an unbelievable story, which I can't wait for people to hear. And we spent some time earlier talking about it. We've been here together for the last 3 or 4 hours today on this lovely Saturday in September in Canada. It's amazing. But John is the president CEO of a landscape company called Action Home Services. And you started that back in 2015, I think. No, did I get that right? Yeah. So 10 years in business. Started from zero. I'll let you talk about your size and scale. I don't want to kind of throw that out there, but you immigrated from Kazakhstan when you were 17 as a student. You came to Canada. That's where I'm going to end my part of the story, because the way you tell the story is it's unbelievable. But if you could just kind of lay out, because I think it lays a foundation to, there's a lot of things going on right now, especially, US, Canada. I mean, it's actually around the world, immigration, the conversation of immigration, all that kind of stuff. And so I think that there's not only just there's a business conversation here, but there's a fundamental foundation of a conversation potentially about immigration and about being an immigrant and coming to a country and building a business and contributing, growing, and, providing to society. And I just think your take on it is really interesting. So anyways, John Karpov from Action Home Services, why don't you just start with your early story?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. This is truly remarkable. I've never been in a studio for a podcast, so the quality of preparation here is definitely very, very different.
Yeah, well,
and
thanks.
just like you mentioned, it's I had this feeling great from the first second I met you. It's like brother from another mother. I call you Big Brother Dwayne. It's all the stories you've been sharing, all the personal challenges you were going through. I can relate a lot on those. So I feel very similar. So yeah, my name is John Karpov. I'm originally from Kazakhstan. Now I live in Canada. And my story began back when I was in Kazakhstan. I just didn't like the place where I was living. Simply because the opportunities there for me were very much closed. And I knew that the life which I'm looking for and the life which I would want to have for my future family would not be possible in that part of the world. So it wasn't only so much about Kazakhstan, it was more about this part of the world which I didn't like. So I decided to immigrate and I decided to move to Canada. And I did it when I was 17. In order to legally move to Canada, I had to go to college. So when I moved to Canada, I first had to study English for the first 3 months. I knew a little bit before, but really barely. And it was really hard for me to understand North American accent at the beginning. So I could speak, but I could not understand the phone calls for first probably 1.5 years. I could not speak with people on the phone at all. Yeah,
Oh,
because
really?
because I was learning British English. And because of the North American accent, I just couldn't understand people on the phone. So if I'm looking at a person and I can see the face expressions and the mouth, how it opens and people pronounce words, I could kind of get a sense, but on the phone, no chance.
So when you moved here, did you speak any
Very
English?
low, very low. And I knew words, so I could read, I could speak, but on a very basic level. And again, the very big difference here is as you're speaking with natives, the slang changes, the speed of language changes, the way the words are getting pronounced changes. Speaking on the phone is very different. And I also was learning the British English, not North American. So the pronunciation of the words does change. So I was just not used to that accent. I was used to British English.
Yeah, it's hard. Learning a new language is extremely difficult. I'm learning Spanish, and it's unbelievable how different it is between Colombian Spanish, Mexican Spanish. It's just so much different between the different Spanishes. So
Yeah, when you're probably native and you're trying to speak with somebody who speaks the same language, you can understand it, but somebody who's learning it's hard. So yeah, I moved, studied English for 3 months, went to college, and after the first semester, my parents called me, told me that their financial situations have changed, and they can no longer financially support me. So I really needed to figure out now how to make money fast to pay for my tuition and to be able to stay here. So for anybody who is not from Canada, the tuition fees for college are much higher than for local people. So to give you perspective, if local would be paying about $3,000 per semester, if you're from abroad, you're going to be paying $8,000. So this money back in Kazakhstan is just unbelievable number. It's really expensive. As when I was moving, the average salary per month was like $300-400. So $300-400 per month. So
wow.
the cost is very, very high. So my parents called me. They said they can't support me anymore, and I really needed to figure out how I could make a lot of money really fast. So what I did is I went online. I went on one of the local Facebook groups. I found a job ad, and essentially what I needed to do is to receive the money on my personal bank account, and then I needed to withdraw them and send them overseas using cash money, which to me at 17 seemed to be as a very legit business. Like there's no red flags, nothing. So I did it first time, second time, and then the third time I got a much larger transaction coming in my bank account. So the bank froze this transaction to verify it. My employer called me and said, well, we really need this money fast. And I really didn't want to lose my job. And as they were paying me a small percentage of the money, so it's like a commission. So what I did is I called bank. Bank told me that the money are on hold. They're going to be released tomorrow. And I asked the bank, are you sure it's going to be released? They said yes. I ended up withdrawing everything I had, send them overseas. And then the next day I got a call from a bank saying that my account has been blocked. The money which were sent to me are fraudulent. And essentially I sent all the money I had on my bank account overseas.
Okay, I didn't know this part of the story. Are you serious? So okay, just run this up. You come here as a student. Your parents obviously had a financial situation back in Kazakhstan, and so could no longer help fund your education. So your options at that point, I assume, are you go back to Kazakhstan because you're no longer a student, so you can't stay in the country, or you figure out a way to pay your tuition so you can stay in the country, which is the main motivation. And then you get this job. And of course, being new to the country, because like that's kind of a known scam, and then you end up. So how much money do you lose at this stage? I guess you've lost everything.
I don't remember the number, to be honest, right now, but it was like $5,000 or $6,000. So I essentially sent everything I had. And when I was 17, I got this call from a bank account got blocked. I'm getting a call from police is trying to investigate me. And right at this moment, I realized, okay, well, I'm a failure in life. Like, that's it. My life is over. And right at this second, I'm thinking, okay, well, my only option right now is to end my life. Like, nothing else. I'm not thinking of any other option. So felt pretty horrible at that moment. And what I did is I called my wife, and essentially I just called her to say goodbye. I was seriously about to just end my life. So thinking of different options of suicide, of what I could do. And it was just one phone call away. And she somehow kept me on this phone call for probably 20 minutes. She somehow pulled me together, said, don't give up. Just, you got to figure it out. You got to get something done. So was crying like a little bitch, and then went online and started to look for another job. So that's where I guess the big first lesson of my life was learned, is not to give up. So right at that moment, I found another job. Should probably do a quick step back. I didn't tell my parents about it. I didn't call them and tell them what happened. So when they called me and said, well, you guys are going to figure out how to get my money or move back, there was no option for me of going back. So that's why I found this job. But I also didn't want to call them and tell them I'm failure. So I only called my, back then she was my girlfriend, now it's my wife. And then, yeah, she somehow pulled me together. Then I decided to went on online search of jobs, and I found the job where the job would pay daily. That was a very critical moment for me because I had no money. Like when I'm saying no money, it's like zero.
Yeah, how much you had? Like a couple of bucks or something.
I had a transit card for TTC. I had a transit card. So my rent for a month was paid because it was the beginning of the month. So I already prepaid my month, and I was renting a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 other guys. So I had 1 room. So this was paid off. I had food on the fridge for probably a week or so because I just did the groceries before all of this happened. And I had a transit card. So I found a job, and now I take this transit card and I go on this job interview. Now, as I'm going on this job interview, what I didn't know, and I lived in downtown Toronto at that point. I lived right in Queen Street. So the job interview was, I think, Aurora. So I've never been past Finch before. Like Finch was my end of Toronto. I didn't know what the rest of the GTA looked like. Because again, I'm just at that point, I was like 6 or 7 months in Canada. So as I'm going to Aurora, I realized once you pass Steeles, there is no more TTC. So the red line finishes, and now you have to get in a blue line. So right at that moment, I realized, okay, well, this card doesn't work anymore. I need to get on a job interview. And this was the only job I was able to find which pays daily, because I couldn't afford to wait for 2 weeks. I wouldn't be able to survive. I had nobody to borrow the money from. I didn't have friends at that point of time in Canada. I didn't want to call my parents because I knew that their financial situation is hard as well. So I didn't want to put the pressure on someone else. So I knew I had to find a job, and the job was far away, which didn't bother me. So as I was going, I realized that now I need to get on this bus, but they're not going to allow me because I tried this. I said, no, you can't get in. So I get back on the subway station. I'm looking at this bus. I'm like, okay, well, let me just walk from the back door and run somehow and get in the bus. So I did it, and I got in the bus. And the moment I got it, and I'm driving to Aurora now, and I'm like, okay, well, I did it this time. It's probably not going to work on the way back. And now I'm going to have to walk from Aurora, which is 20 miles to 40 kilometers, to a subway station. And then from there, I'm going to have to take a subway to get back to where I live. And I really didn't want to do it. So as I'm going on a job interview, now I'm realizing that I have no idea of what the job I'm applying for. I've got no idea what they're doing, but I really need the job now. I need to get hired immediately. So as I sit down in a room with the business owner, I speak with him, and he asked me if I've ever done driving sealing before. And I told him, yeah, I've done it my entire life. I've done it. I know everything about it. And I somehow bullshitted my way through this. So I told him the story. I told him that I can do that. And he says, okay, well, great. Come back in a couple of days. We're about to head out. I told him, no. We're going to go now. Like, I'm going with you guys. I'm going to sell this. Said, yep. Somehow I convinced him, said, okay. So I jump on a truck. We get dropped off in an area. And right from here, my day starts. It's probably around 9 a.m. I get on the street. They give me flyers. On a flyers it sells pricing, but it doesn't show the picture of what's going to be done, how it's going to be done. It doesn't explain the process. And I also didn't get any training because I told them I know what I'm selling.
Okay, hold on one sec. So does this guy know, like, did you explain to him what your financial situation was and what your desperation was? So he didn't hire you based on like, okay, this guy's like driven or whatever. He just legit thinks that you know everything about the driveway sealing business, and he's hiring some guy with lots of experience. And
he thinks that, and the truth is, he hires somebody on a commission only pay. So there is no guaranteed wage, there is no hourly pay, there's no salary. So he would only pay me at the end of the day if I sell something. So yes, there's no downside. There's no risk for it. If I don't sell anything, he doesn't lose whatsoever. All he did is he drops me off in a neighborhood. There is no cost associated for him whatsoever. There's no risk. And if I sell the job, I get a percentage of the job when it's completed. So that's how the entire organization worked for them. And, for him was no risk, but when I get dropped off in a neighborhood, I have no idea what I'm selling. And it's hard to explain to somebody how to sell. Like, I didn't know the word driveway. Like I didn't know that the driveway is area in front of the house, because back in Kazakhstan, the houses are built differently. There's no driveway at the front. It doesn't exist. And I didn't know what the driveway ceiling service is. So I actually thought I'm selling something for roof. I didn't know that I'm selling something for the front of the driveway. It's sounds a little bit weird, but I didn't realize what the word driveway means, right? I didn't realize what I'm selling for that property. So all I needed to do is knock the doors and offer people services. So I remembered this word driveway ceiling, and I started to knock the first door, second or third door. And probably 80% of the doors are not even being opened. So nobody's not home because it was a weekday. So nobody's not at home. It's morning. I think it was Friday. So, and probably out of 10 doors, 2 will get open. They're going to say, no, not interested. And 8 just wouldn't open the door because nobody's not home. And as I'm doing this, some people also don't understand my accent. So I'm telling them driveway ceilings. They probably don't understand what I'm talking about. I can't really explain it. So I just knock first door, second. And it's an hour passes by, second hour passes by, third. It was June, so it's pretty hot, and I'm just starting to go. It hits around 4 o'clock, and I'm realizing, okay, well, it's getting really, really, really annoying right now because I didn't eat. I don't have water with me. I've been knocking doors for the last 7 hours, but I'm realizing the end is about to end. The day is about to end, and I have no option but to sell something, so at least can have money to get back to my place where I used to stay. And I just start running now at this point. So I start jogging from door to door to door to door to door. And it goes like this till around 8 p.m. And at around 8 o'clock, I sell my first driveway. As I sell the first driveway, I pull out my phone to call the business owner to tell them that's where he needs to come. And my seller connection is not working because I had a cheap seller provider. So it wasn't covering this portion of the city. I asked homeowner to grab his phone so I can call the company. I found their number from the flyer. I called them, explained them who I am. Again, that's where the story is. It was really hard to understand me on the phone. So it took a while to explain who I am. And they ended up showing at the house. They showed up at the house. They sealed the first driveway. And I actually realized what I'm selling now. I'm like, okay, I got it now. I got it. This is what I sold. So I couldn't believe that the first sale actually happened. But the moment I sold the first one, I just went to a neighbor and immediately told him that everybody else in the street is doing it, and you're the last guy who hasn't get it done. Everybody in the schedule, let's just get yours done. And he said yes. I'm like, shit, strategy worked. And I said the same strategy to everybody else in the street. So then by the end of the day, so like call it 10 p.m., so really late at the evening, all the company vehicles appeared on the same street, and they started to seal every single drive in the same street. There was probably like 9 or 10 houses in the street, so they sealed every single one. And now I ended up making the sale within 2 hours. And then by the end of this day, I ended up being the first guy out of the sales team. So other than me making commissions, also gave me a bonus. So at this moment, I was almost nervous that it's impossible to make so much money in a day, that it's not going to happen, something was going to happen. That's where a second portion of the interesting story gets in. So I actually didn't share this to a lot of people. So one of the guys is a part of the sales team. I don't know if he was a part of the gang or something was happening with him. So his friends from Jane and Finch area came in, and a few cars pulled up, and they pulled up to a business owner, and they started talking to him that they're going to get all the money from him for the work they've done because they had some beef with a sales guy. So I heard that there's a drama happening and my commission is about to give it to somebody else. Right at that point, I came to them and with my really strong Russian accent, I looked at the guy's eye and I said, "You better take my money." And he looked at him and looked like the guy has a gun in his pants. You can see how he's touching it. And I said, "You better shoot me, but I'm going to choke your throat. Do not touch my fucking money." So at that point, they all looked at me, and it did probably look serious for them. So they just left. So they didn't touch the owners. They didn't touch anything. But I had no other option. That was the last money. I earned them. I knew it. So I was really desperate to get them back. And I got paid. I got paid at the end of it. And they paid me, I think it was $350 or $400. The moment I got the money in my hand, I couldn't believe it, because that was more than I made when I was working in Kazakhstan as a waitress for a month. So I was a server there for a month before moving to Canada. So in a month working there, I made less than I made here in a day as a server. And I couldn't believe that that's possible.
I was actually just thinking about that when you had said you made $300 or $400, because earlier you had said like a wage in Kazakhstan is about that per month. I mean, okay, that's an insane story. And every time I hear it, this is the second or third time I've heard you say this story, and it's like, it just blows me away. And what I've not asked you before about this whole thing is like in that moment, what do you think it was that really drove you in the moment?
A really good question. I've asked myself this question multiple times because the moment I started knocking those doors, the flame inside of me started. And I just knew I cannot give up. I need to actually get back on track. I cannot fail my parents because they gave me this opportunity to come in. So I didn't want to feel like a failure. I didn't want to fail for them. I didn't want to fail for myself. I didn't want to come back. So I didn't want to be a guy who moved, wasted a bunch of parents' money and came back and essentially just failed his family. So at that point, I just knew I have to continue going no matter what, and I have to make the sale. But the moment I got this first pay, I was going back on subway. And as I'm driving back on the subway, I'm sitting inside of it and crying desperately because I could not believe it actually happened. And I feel really bad because I felt like I got lucky. It was just one-time occurrence, and it's not going to happen again. So on the next day, I go back to the same job, and I'm in the subway car again, and I'm crying again because I'm like, well, it's not going to happen. I got lucky. There's no way it's going to happen. I was talking myself out of going there because I made enough money for $100 to survive. And I was like, okay, well, the job is too risky. It's commission only. It's just, you have enough. Do not go again. Find something more secure. And I go in and I start knocking doors again, and then another sale happens. And then another sale happens. I'm like, okay, looks like it's actually real. It's happening. Because at the beginning, it felt like it's I don't know. I'm like it's a dream. It's not real. It's not really happening. And then when the second day the sale starts to happen, I realized that it's actually happening in real life. I'm selling this driver selling projects, and I've sold a few on the same day, and then by the end of the second day, I ended up being the best sales guy in the team again, 2 days in a row. So I got paid again more than the first day because they pay your commission plus the bonus, and I sold more drivers on the second day. So I'm like mind blowing now. So in 2 days, I made a killing. I showed up on a third day, and third day I sold less, but that's it. I realized, okay, well, I can actually do it. I can actually, I could work here and I can make decent money by doing this, and I don't have to go back. So all I need to do is just now don't stop and continue grinding and just continue pushing.
Yeah. How much ground did you cover that first day? Like, I mean, you talk like you were like going door to door, but then you started running, and that sounds like a level of desperation to me at some situation as the day goes on. I mean, you don't even know what you're selling, which you don't know what a driveway is. Like, so that's why I asked you the question earlier, like, what was it that really drove, that whole sense of I'm trying to sell something. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what a driveway is. And then once you see the product being applied, then you're like, oh, okay, I get this shit. Like, this is what it is. But
I think the driving factor was, just not giving up for my wife, not giving up for my family, and not failing and not feeling like a failure. Just no matter what, get it through. No matter how hard it is, no matter how painful it is, no matter how many doors I gotta knock, just don't give up. Eventually it's gonna happen. Just don't give up. So this feeling of not feeling like a failure and trying to prove to yourself, that's what gave me this drive.
It's an unbelievable story of like necessity, I think, too. Like in my head, I'm like, man, like when things are that desperate and necessity is the mother of all skill, as they say. And it's like, you just have to find a way. It's like, there's no other way around it. It's either go back to Kazakhstan live in a third world country or developing country, whatever, that's corrupt, and, or stay here in Canada and find the opportunity. I mean, so it doesn't end there. I don't think. Like there's more to this story.
I think it's just the beginning. Then essentially, I started to sell so much that the company at one point of time couldn't keep up with sales. And then I realized that the way it works is if you sell X amount of drivers in a day, the company didn't have any software. So there's no systems, there's no processes. You sell, there's no contracts to sign with the client. It's a verbal agreement. And that if the job, they pay you. So if I sell X amount of drivers and they finish them on this day, I get paid. If for whatever reason they don't finish them on this day, there's a huge chance customer would not do it on the next day. But there's also no scheduling systems, there's no contract. So customer would probably not get it done whatsoever. So essentially the owner of the company told us, well, if we can't get it done the same day, forget about it. Like we're not even going to try to come back there tomorrow. So in one point of time, I sold so much, and then there was another guy, and they prioritized his jobs versus mine. My drivers didn't get done, and I got really upset that, okay, well, I did the work. They can't execute the work, can't get paid. I worked there for about a month at that point of time, and I was working and studying full-time at the same time. So I would study 3 days a week. After my college, right immediately, I would finish all the homework. I would finish all the home stuff. So I didn't need to do anything else on the working days. So I also was extremely cheap. So I was like living on a super tight budget. So pretty much 90% of the money I was making, I was saving. Out of 100, 90 I was saving. So I ended up saving a little bit of money. And at that point of time, I realized that I should just start doing the same thing, open my own business and do it, because if I can sell jobs but they can't execute, it just doesn't make sense for me to continue doing it. And if it happened once, it's probably going to happen again because I was just only getting better at doing the sales. So at that point, I went online. I found a trailer with equipment. I had enough savings to go and buy this equipment. So I bought this equipment. I didn't have enough money to buy a pickup truck. Neither didn't want to take a risk of buying a pickup truck. It's a much larger investment. And I also didn't have a driver license, so I couldn't even buy it. So I went to my roommate and I asked him to rent a truck on his name. It was a U-Haul truck. So he rented a truck on his name. I gave him the money, and I asked him to be a driver and essentially the technician who's going to be doing the job, and I'm going to be doing all the sales. When I went on a parking lot, we practiced for 20 minutes how to do driver sealing, because I knew
some random parking lot.
Just random parking lot. It was somewhere in Commissioner Street. You can see that the parking lot was not used for like last 10 years. It was full of weeds. And I knew how to sell, but I didn't know how to do the driver sealing, which to me didn't seem like a rocket science. I knew how to turn on the equipment. I knew how to actually spray, but I didn't know how to spray nicely. And for all the listeners, for everybody, all the followers, the driver sealing we were doing was from a machine. So it's a machine with an engine, and it just sprays the tar, the oil-based tar. So it seemed easy enough for me, but I've never actually tried it. So as we're trying to
spray the sidewalk and the guy's flowers.
So we went to a parking lot and we tried spraying in the middle of parking lot, which was also pretty easy because it's a parking lot. We didn't try to spray it along the curb, like we did literally in the middle. We tried it, it worked, and I told my roommate at that point that, okay, well, you're gonna be technician, I'm gonna be doing all the sales. We went in the neighborhood, I sold the first driveway. I helped him to do it. We finished the job, then we finished the second job, third job, and then I realized, okay, well, he's actually not really good at executing this job, but I can be executing myself. So I've got an operational problem immediately. It went on like this for about 2 weeks. We were actually doing those jobs. It was taking us a long time to execute them, but we were still making money. And I also didn't know how to calculate the profit at that point of time, because you can't calculate the materials because we filled up the entire tank with materials. So I don't know how much is left. I don't know how much money we were making. So I paid him, and essentially I was, from the savings I had, I was still cash flowing these operations. And then at one point of time, this friend tells me that it was a long weekend. So he tells me he doesn't want to work. He wants to rest. We worked too hard for the last 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, it's a weekend. It's the perfect time. Everybody's going to be home. We got to go. He said that no, he's not interested. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to go. So now I jumped in a truck. I hook up the trailer. I never drove a pickup truck in my life. Never drove a vehicle in my life. Don't have a driver.
You never driven a vehicle in your life?
At that point, I never drove a vehicle. I never drove a pickup truck. I never drove anything with a trailer, obviously. So I hook up the trailer, start driving, get on highway, the trailer unattaches. I get out from the truck in the middle of 401, so right in the central lane. I get out, and the trailer was still hooked on chains, so it stopped. It hit the bumper. I get out. I rehooked it, reattached it, get back in the truck, start driving again. And I was driving at that point on highway probably 60 kilometers an hour. I was too scared to drive faster than that.
Right.
Didn't kill anybody. Didn't hurt anybody. There was no accidents. I don't know how it happened, but I went through this day. I realized, okay, well, I'm not really the best driver. Can't really drive. I need somebody to teach me how to do it. Luckily, in that day, I didn't go too far from downtown to seal the driveway. So it was, I think, somewhere in Etobicoke. So the drive was short. And that, I think, on the following day, a manager from the previous company where I worked called me, said he quit the previous job. He heard that I opened a new company. He asked if I would be interested in hiring him. And he was a main technician in another company. So he really knew how to execute the work. I was really thrilled because he knows how to drive. He's got a license and he can execute the job. So he came on the next day, and I was a little bit worried because to keep this one guy busy, in the other companies, I had 4 sales guys. So 4 salespeople were selling to keep one technician busy. He comes in, and the first day I make just insane amount of sales. And we sold so many drivers that from the morning till night he was selling, and he couldn't even keep up. I had to stop selling and go and help him. And he was also making a commission of the revenue. So that's how the other company worked. Is the technicians were not hourly or pay; they were all based on commission as well of the work they're executing. So both sales guys and technicians.
So the faster they move, 100%. The more money they make.
Yeah, and they're very, very much interested in also helping us to sell. This way, they can also make more. So everybody is essentially incentivized to produce more. So he made a killing on that day. I made a killing on that day. We're both happy. And that's how this started, and it went on like this for several months. So I would work every single day unless I'm going to be in a school or unless it's going to be raining. Very luckily for me, it almost never rained on the days when I was off from school. It somehow magically only rained on the days when I was in school, which was perfect. So my days of school was my days where I could do all the cleaning, I could prepare myself food, and that's it. The other days I would just work full time. So I would study full time, work full time. I would probably put about 60 hours in those 4 working days, and then the rest of the days would study. So it went on like this till the rest of the summer. Somewhere in October, we had to shut down operations because the sales were not going anywhere. Then I found a job in construction, working on a general contracting company. We were building a hospital. So I worked there. Was a really another interesting story because the job shift started at 10 p.m. It would finish at, I think, 4 a.m. 6 a.m. I would go to home, sleep for 4 hours, go to college. So I did it like this for 4 months, and new season began. So I started to do driving sealing again with the same technician, and we continued doing it for another half a season. Then he decided to pursue his career somewhere else, and by that point of time I already knew how to execute the work, how to do everything. So I continued doing both sales and executing the work myself. Got a lot of other salespeople, so they're also selling. We're all doing it together, and then we started to get small requests for a landscaping project. So people wanted to do small sodding projects. People wanted to do a small planting project. So they wanted like 10 flowers and a driveway sealing, or can you put 1 tree and do a driveway sealing? So it was always a combination with driveway sealing of doing something else. So we started to do it more and more and more. And at that point of time, I started to get really tired of doing this door-to-door sales because there's no pre-guaranteed jobs for tomorrow. There's no pre-booking for tomorrow. So whatever you sell today, whatever money you make today, that's what you're going to put on your table today. There is no guaranteed future for tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen next week. And it was really exhausting me that I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
And I don't have anything pre-planned. So at that one point of time, I got a landscaping request from one of the clients. We did a driveway ceiling. He wanted to change paver walkway at the front. And it was a couple 100 square feet walkway. And I didn't know how to do this type of project. But a friend of mine who I met in college just opened a landscaping company, and his partners in that company had 10 years of experience doing landscaping. So I called him and I said, I've got this job. Are you guys interested in doing it together? They came in, look at the job, helped me to price it. We gave a price, client agreed. We did this project. And I figured out how to do this project. We did another one. And then after one point, they said, okay, well, we don't really want to do these projects with you. Just sell them, take a commission. We're going to do it ourselves because you're going to learn and you're going to start doing it on your own. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to learn how to do it, but I have projects and you guys don't. So if you want to do it, we're going to have to do it together. And I'm interested in learning more than making money. I want to learn how it's done. So they agreed. And we were just continue doing it till the rest of the summer. And then the following year, I was debating whether I want to continue doing a mix of both or whether I want to continue doing landscaping projects, because I realized the landscaping projects are longer. It's much easier to actually have something pre-booked. And for me, I wasn't trying to pre-book something for a month ahead. I was thinking 3 days ahead. Like I want to have enough work secured for 3 days. That's all I care about. Or 4 days, 5 days, like nothing longer than a week. That's all I cared about. And the season did not start it yet. And when I talk about season, it's the warm weather needs to be in Toronto for me to even do sales. Nobody doesn't care about the landscaping. If you're a small company, that's February outside. In March, I decided to apply for a job. I was doing a high-rise window washing, and I was doing at the same time driveway sealing. So as I was doing this job, I was doing driveway sealing, and I was contemplating whether I want to sell all the driveway sealing equipment and start doing landscaping. And it was a big debate because I was making good money doing this high-rise window washing. And on a really good days of driveway sealing, I could make more. On a bad days, I would make way more on high-rise. So it was a big debate whether I want to take all the risk and proceed with it. Then at one point of time, I said, yeah, so just screw it. I'm going to go all in. So I sold my equipment of driveway sealing to my friend and quit this high-rise window cleaning job and went to landscaping. Sold the first landscape project. It was 2 weeks long job, and I went all in on landscaping.
Okay, so I got a few questions because I feel like I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. And the question is like, so you didn't know what a driveway was, you didn't know what driveway sealer was, you didn't know how to drive a truck, you didn't know how to hook up a trailer to a truck. Did you know how to sell?
No, I've never done sales in my life.
So what do you think were the, and I know you have a very robust sales program now in your existing company, but at the time you didn't know how to sell. You had no experience. What were the things that made and set you apart from the guys, like, and that team selling? Like, this is the kind of stuff that I did when I was really young too, is like, you go out and you sell door to door and whatnot. And what were the things that, you feel allowed you to always be, I don't want to say you were always the head sales guy or led the guys selling that day, but probably more often than not. What was it? What were the tips? What were the tricks? What was why you versus them?
I think the first strategy which I had, which actually worked with me for many, many years, is I would outwork anyone. So it's not so much me being better. At the end of the day, it's just a ratio. If I knock more doors and I get 1 out of 10, if I knock 10 times more doors, I'm going to have more sales. So if the other guys would want to take a break, I would not stop. I would just don't stop and I would grind all day long. I would be the first guy to start, the last guy to finish, and I would not stop whatsoever. Second one is probably the energy, which I had when I was doing it. Third one, I think, would be I think it's a need. But it's more than a need. It's also almost at the level of scarcity that I desperately needed to actually make a sale. So I would just go above and beyond, and yeah, I think it's a combination of those three things.
So when you now look at your company, and the three things that I wrote down here were activity, energy, and scarcity. Do those things come into play for you still now when you're teaching your guys or coaching them through the sales process? That like, because there'd be some people who preach like, quality versus quantity, recognizing what the ideal client is versus just going on pounding on doors. Like, where do you sit on that and that whole process and the thinking around that?
So everything definitely changed for us from the moment it started to where we are right now, because the size of the ticket which we're selling is totally different. When you're selling a driver ceiling job for $200, it's not the same thing as selling $200,000 projects. You definitely need to have a lot more pre-qualification when you're selling $200,000 job on a driveway ceiling for $200. A lot more people can afford it. A lot more people can need it. A lot more people can see why this type of service would associate with them in their house. Not everybody can spend $200,000. Not everybody would see the value in doing a project of that size. So it definitely changed. In terms of outworking everyone else, all of our guys still work very long hours. And the reason why we would work really long hours, it's to provide an amazing customer service. So if customer would only be available on Saturday evening because they're busy at their line of work, we would not reject an appointment because we don't work at that time. We would make ourselves available. So we would still, I would say, to a certain degree, have this outworking everyone else. So we're very flexible to make sure that we can actually provide this great customer service to clients. Second one, energy. I think it's applicable in all sales. I think you have to have passion and energy to the type of product or services you sell. And I think if you're not passionate about what you're doing, your clients would feel it, right? People would feel it, and they may not be interested as much if you're not truly doing it from the bottom of your heart. I think those two are still the core of not only the sales team, but of the entire company. Those two are definitely still there.
Right. And then scarcity. Do you look, when you hire a salesperson, are you looking for somebody that has, even like in early days, that drive, that need, that scarcity, that?
I think I would actually prefer guys not to have that scarcity mindset, because everybody can perform much better if their back is not put against the wall, right? It's the worst feeling I've had in my life. It's not a good feeling, and you could break a person. So it's not a good feeling. So I would much rather my guys have the ability to provide everything for their family and put the roof over their head and put the food on the table. So they're not going to be desperate to make this single sale, because that's exactly when mistakes will happen. That's where exactly the things will be overpromised, or we're going to sell a wrong product to a wrong client, or we're going to take on the job which you don't want. So I don't think scarcity applies in our company anymore whatsoever. However, the really big thing here is they still have to be hungry, right? So no matter how much you sell, you still got to be hungry, because staying hungry is what's going to allow you to go and continue pushing yourself to the next step and next limit. If you're fed and you've got enough and you're just don't want more, then it's not going to work. And it doesn't mean that you want more, again, to put food on the table for tonight. You just want more in general. You want more from your life. You want to grow. You want to get better. So for me, growth, it's in my DNA. Like, it's in my blood. I would never stop growing, right? So to me, it's growth would have to exist for me to stay as a human.
For you. Now, what about for, because obviously a guy who has the story that you have is obviously driven and is, there's this level, and I guess actually would be one of the questions that I had. Like you had said earlier, you were a failure in life was the quote that you used. and when it went down, you got that scam, that bank scam. When did it shift for you between the desire to not, and maybe it hasn't shifted, but to not be a failure, to, which is kind of a scarcity mindset, right? And then to the growth mindset. Where did that shift for you? And then I have a part B follow-up question.
I don't think it's fully shifted yet. I still sometimes feel that it's not enough. So for me, having this mentality of not enough, it's still, I was just speaking with my wife about it yesterday or at night. It's still not enough for forever. So I'm not sure if it's a scarcity mindset of wanting more, or if, it's a really hard question. I'm not sure if I'm done and over with this. I'm not sure if, I definitely don't feel like I've achieved enough in my life. Definitely don't feel like I've accomplished much. So whenever some people would say to me that, wow, you're so young, you've done so much, I don't like hearing it. I don't feel good about it, because for me, it's not even 1% of what I want to achieve.
Yeah. So do you feel, and is that because, do you feel like you still identify as that poor kid from Kazakhstan that didn't have anything, still doesn't have anything? Like, where does that come from?
I think it is still a scarcity that somebody can take it away, that it still could be over, and it still could turn totally different. So the pain which I had, it's probably still didn't heal and it's been 11 years. So I don't think I'm fully over it. And that's why I continuously want more, and I just can't stop grinding and pushing more, because I'm really desperately worried that something may happen and it may all go away.
And so I'm curious, like when you say that, like you use the words, the pain hasn't healed, and it's you say 11 years, which if I'm doing my math right, that's when you moved to Canada, and then had that incident. But is there an incident before that that drove you away from Kazakhstan to Canada? That, like, is it deeper than just the last 11 years?
So there was no accidents back in Kazakhstan, but just to tell the story to all the followers, the place where I'm from, there's no way anybody could ever achieve what I've achieved and stay alive. I would have been either killed, or some of my family members would have been kidnapped. Something would have happened to my wife. Somebody would have tried to take it away. So there would have been definitely something what would have happened. So for me, probably the anchor mindset, which I still have from there, just gives me this vibe that somebody can still come and take it. So this is the reason why I really didn't want to stay in Kazakhstan, because it was, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you do, there is still a chance that somebody will come and just take away everything from you. So I didn't want it. So when I moved here, now I'm still grinding every single day. But there is some sort of belief somewhere in the head that it's still possible. And that's why I always stay humble, and no matter what happens, and even if somebody's going to take away everything from me today, I would not stop. I would just restart and continue going again. And I know that I could build everything what I've built right now, just much shorter span.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that. Dale Carnegie once said, you can take my money and all my value, take my businesses, leave me my people, and I'll have it all back in a year. And I never ever forgot that quote when I heard it, and that was many, many, many moons ago. But it's interesting, it's interesting on a couple levels. One, it's like on a human psychology level, it's interesting, but I also find it interesting from an immigration standpoint, like being an immigrant. Like that's not something, being born and raised in, I'll call it North America, but obviously it was Canada is where I was born. But being born and raised in North America, there isn't that kind of corruption where somebody is going to come in and take what you have. You don't have that risk of loss. And it's amazing to me that Kazakhstan is that corrupt still, in this day and age. Is it still like that now?
I don't want to make it sound worse than it actually is, but it's definitely corrupt. The country is definitely corrupt, and there's a lot of great guys there. There's a lot of great businesses, but there's also a lot of horrible stories which are happening. It doesn't only happen in Kazakhstan, right? It happens in every single country of post-Soviet Union. So Kazakhstan was one of the countries from USSR. So it's a post-Soviet Union country. So the cultural tendencies of those countries are still in place, and the higher level of corruption in governments are still present, which I think is the really similar factor with any third world countries. And every single of them will have some traits of corrupted governments, which would also limit the business growth, as well as would put a chance of things being taken away from business owners. No matter how much legacy you build, there is still a risk of something were to happen to you, your family, or your business.
I mean, it's amazing. So now, like, with where you are today, you've built a phenomenal business, and at some point in time, we'll move along that path and tell that story. But the fear that you still have, is it hold you back? Does it, like, have you thought about that? You said you were talking to your wife just yesterday about it. Like, so how do you put that and compartmentalize that or weigh that out in terms of your own personal growth and where you see yourself as a business person elevating themselves? Because I think, like, if you're a business owner, there's always a risk that it could go away. Somebody's in North America, somebody's not coming to take it. But the economic, and we're in an economic downturn right now. There's as much uncertainty now as probably there has been in many, many years that I can remember, of headwinds, to any business owner in any industry, this post-COVID kind of era where the money's not free anymore and it's not being handed out, and high unemployment. So there's always that risk, but how does that affect you and your personal growth and your thinking, and how do you weigh that out and consider it?
I think a lot of the answers are actually within your question. It's not a fear that somebody was going to come and take it away, in a sense, which could happen in Kazakhstan. It's the risk tolerance. So for me, every single time when I talk about this fear, it's me thinking of what could possibly go wrong, and what I could do to limit to this risk, and what I could do to mitigate this risk and get better and avoid those potential risks. So I'm a high risk taker, but in a lot of different cases, I could be extremely conservative and I would take the safest approach. So we're in construction. So for me, a big risk would be somebody getting hurt on the job site, right? So that's, for me, it's a biggest thing. It's the safety of people on site. But I don't have the ability to control every single driver I have in a vehicles. I don't have ability to control every single guy at the job site. And as the business starts to scale, there's less things I can have a control of. And any business has a higher risk the more it scales. It is unavoidable. The bigger the business, the bigger the risk would be. So for me, it's always having this in back of my mind, is every single move I do needs to have a fundamental rules in place that at no point of time it could not destroy the business. So this fear of anything being taken away is not so much that a person will take it away. It's staying humble and never forgetting where I come from, and always being grateful for the journey I went through, but always keeping in mind that the risks are still there. No matter what happens, there is no security. Economy could change. There could be a major collapse of any economy at any point of time, and you would never know. The things which happened in 2008 were unpredictable. Situations like COVID, things could have turned totally different, right? All of this is actually possible. So for me, having those things at the back of my mind is what sometimes keeps me awake.
And I'm curious, like, when you raised a really couple of good points there about COVID and 2008, is like, how do you mitigate risk as your business is scaling? How are you mitigating that risk? What are the things as the president or CEO that you have to consider and think about?
So for us, the big one is probably having enough of financial analysis and being able to don't only grow at a high pace, but also being very, very liquid. So it's having those financial benchmarks that at no point of time what happens, the company could still afford to pay the payroll, could still afford to pay all the bills. And even if there's a major economic downturn, to still stay afloat regardless.
And do you have set mark or benchmarks that you maintain? Like, I'm going to have X amount of cash, like free cash flow. What is your model that would you say that in general that you try to follow?
Having a lot more of cash reserves and a 12 months of operational expenses. So that's probably a big one. So for a lot of guys, it would be extremely conservative. But for me, if you can flow the business for 12 months, that's pretty secure. And if things are not improving within 12 months, and you definitely have to downsize or start looking for new ways for a business to continue staying afloat. Looking highly at debt to equity ratio. So for me, as the company was scaling, I had to be really careful with leverage, and I didn't want to bring on external investors. That's probably a second one. And yeah, it's being careful when you're taking on larger projects, because those larger projects require a lot of cash.
And on the larger projects, like, what do you do to mitigate that? Is it, are you guys taking bigger deposits? Are you looking for milestone payments, and you're really structuring and making sure that you don't, get outside of your cash flow requirements?
Yeah, it's payment terms. It's being very careful with payment terms and being careful which type of work we do. So if the payment terms would not work for us and we really want the job, we might drop the job just because of the payment terms. If I don't feel secure that the homeowner would actually pay the bill, and I feel that there's something sketchy with the project, I may not take on the job.
Right. Do you ever, like, on big jobs, like, do you look at bonding as a requirement for a job that you might consider doing, or is that on your radar yet?
So there are certain residential jobs where clients would want us to be bonded. So yes, we would do that.
You probably do your own construction jobs. Do you do subcontracting for bigger construction companies at all anymore, or are you?
No, we're beyond that. Yeah, we do a little bit of work, but it's not so much about other construction companies. It's more of a strategic partners. So we'll build a pool for somebody, or we'll do landscaping for a builder. But we would not work, let's say, under another GC. And as a company, we were scaling. We used to be a sub for another landscaping company who was bigger, but we are not doing it anymore.
Okay. Actually, well, since we're talking about this, do you mind? So I'm going to kind of flip back just from a timeline perspective, because I don't want to get too far down what you're currently doing without getting the backstory for people. And so where we left off on your story was that you had sold your stuff, started doing the more landscaping, quit the high-rise window washing job. You're how old now at this time? 18, 19?
I was 19. So I was 19.
So you're 2 years into the country. Probably still don't even speak very good English.
No, I think I was pretty good because, it's my first semester. My English improved big time because I really needed to pass all the tests on my college. So what people would say is you have to read the summaries to pass everything instead of read the entire book. So every single book I would get in college, I would read the whole thing. So I would read every single term. And now I was studying business project management. So a lot of terms were not familiar to me because those were business terms. So I had to look up the translation, and I would get translation, and I wouldn't know the name of the word in Russian either. So I wouldn't know this word because it's a very specific business term. So very quickly I started get really comfortable with English business terms. And I was just getting the description of what this word means. And also, as I was working, everybody I started to work with were Canadians. So technicians were Canadians, all the salespeople were Canadians. So my accent started to get better. I started to get better speaking, listening, and slowly I learned how to speak on the phone as well.
Right. Sorry, what were you taking in school?
Business project management.
Okay, business project management. Nice. So you start to scale up your landscaping.
Essentially, I started to take on landscaping projects, hired some guys, we were doing a job. I was a main foreman in this job, and then I would get more jobs and more jobs. And because I was good at sales already at that point of time, I was not a good technician. However, I was good at sales. So I was able to produce work pretty quickly. And then it got to a point that I was able to overbook ourselves in a pretty short period of time. So I immediately needed a foreman because I started to sell projects which I cannot execute anymore. The jobs were much bigger than my expertise. So I found a person who I think at that point of time was around 55 or 60. And he was in construction his entire life. So he knew how to build a house from the foundation to the roofing. He knew the finished carpentry. He knew masonry. He knew stonework. He used to work in another landscaping company, and they did landscaping during the summer, and they did interior work during the winter. So he essentially knew everything about construction. So as I started to get different projects, I would put him on the most complicated jobs, and I would be the foreman on the more simpler projects. So it went on like this for a full year. And then the next year, I immediately needed more crews. So in my first year, we immediately had probably about, in the busiest time, about 4 crews running, in the slowest time too.
Do you mind if I ask what's your revenue at this stage in your business? Or if you don't want to answer.
No, I would answer. I just, I don't remember his exact numbers.
Did you know?
No, I didn't. I can kind of guess now, but I wouldn't know because I didn't do really good bookkeeping at that point of time. And it's been many years ago. So I didn't write down the data as good back then. So I would probably say with the first year we went over $1 million. So we for sure were over $1 million in the first year. I just don't know, was it like 1.2 or was it 1.5? But just by looking at the amount of people we had in the first year, we're definitely over $1 million.
Wow, that's impressive. What you said you're like good at sales. What, and I know we talked about it earlier, and you kind of said just more activity, energy, scarcity. But now at this point in time, you're the foreman for smaller jobs. You've hired another foreman. Like. How did the sales develop? Like, because how did you get good at it? Because you're now selling bigger jobs with more crews. And so your time is, now anybody who's running a business knows that at this stage that you're at with $1 million in revenue, 4 crews. So I'm guessing you got somewhere between a dozen and 16 or 20 guys. And, now you're, probably time is spread. You've moved from solopreneur to business owner, if you will. And so how'd you refine the sales? What made you good?
I think it's practice and repetition and fix things and getting better at asking correct questions and being there for a customer throughout the journey. So yeah, a combination of a few different things started to allow us to get those projects more and more and more. And keep in mind, not all our jobs, when I say they were bigger, it was $20,000 jobs. So we went in from $200 driveway ceiling jobs to $10,000 or $20,000 jobs. And a lot of our jobs were still back then like $3,000, $4,000. So on a $20,000 job, I would put my main foreman, and I would be essentially doing a landscaping job, which would last a day. So I would do a $2,000 job myself. He would be doing a $20,000 job for a week, let's say, or 5 days. And I would be just doing $2,000 job per day. And I think it was a lot of practice because I did all the sales myself. So as you're doing things, I was analyzing what I could do better every single day and figuring out what I could improve.
What were some of the biggest distinctions? Because when you go to selling a $200 driveway job to a $20,000 construction job, I mean, that's a huge jump. And we're not talking 5 years. We're talking a year. Like the year before you're selling driveways. Yeah. Now you're selling $20,000 contract jobs.
I think it's actually believing that people would be willing to spend so much money on the landscaping project. That's the first one is the level of belief, because my first level of belief changed when I was able to sell a $200 landscaping projects. I couldn't believe people would be willing to invest so much money in the driveway ceiling. And then I've done it so many times, I realized it's actually happening. But then when I went in and I sold the $20,000 landscape projects at the beginning, it was really shocking that people would actually spend that much money on landscaping.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. Not thinking, because if you're from Kazakhstan and your monthly salary is $300 or $400, to go spend $250 of dollars on a driveway ceiling that'd be tough to kind of comprehend, I would think, I guess, as an immigrant to a new country. It's
very difficult. Well, first you've got this huge cultural shock, which happens from North America in general, but the huge cultural shock was prices. It takes a while for people to swallow. And also, I'm from pretty small city in Kazakhstan. So major cities in Kazakhstan, the high price is 3 times more. But I also come from a very small city, and I come to Toronto. So the gap there was like huge. So at the very beginning, I could not believe the cost of ride on a subway. Like I couldn't comprehend the $3 charge. For me, it was mind blowing how the subway, and I could not believe how people would spend $2 on a coffee. To me, it was like ridiculous amount of money. So I'm not talking about $200. Like $2 on a coffee was ridiculous amount of money.
Right. Wow.
So that's how much of a gap there was. So, but then when I started to do this driver selling projects, I realized, okay, well, that's how people could do it because they're making more, they're actually producing more. But I still had this mentality and cultural anchors that I couldn't spend so much money. So I couldn't justify the cost of a lot of things and prices for a lot of things. That's why I was not spending, even though I was making for probably like at that point, as I was still doing the driver sealing, I was probably making on any months between 6 to 11,000. I was buying food in no frills and coupons, and I was buying it I still remember my lunches in college. It was frozen fish. You would buy no frills, 3 pieces for $5, and I would get rice and frozen veggies, and that's it. I would eat the same food, and my breakfast would be banana, half a banana with oatmeal and water with cinnamon. That's it. So I could live for about on a budget for food for $150 for a month.
Wow. You're still going to school at this stage. I think I said, are you 18 or 19 now? You're finished your first year in the landscape. So you got to be close to 19. Did $1 million in revenue. And then where do you take the business? You're got to be coming up on finishing school soon.
So in my first and second year, I did not take summer off. So I was studying throughout every single year. But when I started the landscaping season, I took summer off. So I did not study during those days, which was allowed me to work more during the summer. But then as the fall would begin, I would go back to school. And then same story, I would have to go to classes. But now what I did is I managed to be in classes early in the mornings or late in the evenings. But it became a lot more difficult because the company was much bigger. So in order for me now to be in school, I need to jeopardize the schedule. Now, a lot of my guys at that point of time didn't drive. So now I essentially have to pick them up, drive them to a job site.
Oh, you got your driver's license at this time? Yeah, that's okay.
I had a driver's license at that time.
That's good.
I, at that time, already had a couple of trucks, so I had to have a driver's license and trailers. And I was good with trailers at that
so
point.
you got the driving down, the trailers down, the license. Awesome. Good for you.
So I was picking up the guys, dropping them off at the job site, and from the job site, we're going back to college, studying. College was right in the middle of downtown Toronto. So for me, it was always essentially finding a parking spot for a truck with a trailer, because I have to keep the trailer. When I finish the school, I need to go and pick the guys up, but also bring the material. Right. So it was, a little bit of a challenging situation at that point.
And at this stage, like your business is doing pretty well, probably. You're you've got to be making some bank, or are you reinvesting it all back into the business?
We're putting it all back.
Broke as hell.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that we're broke. I at least have enough money to pay for my rent. I could pay for the food. I do have savings. But I also reinvest heavily because I buy all the tools. I'm buying all different miscellaneous parts which I need. And I'm reinvesting all the money back in a business for marketing or building the website, doing a lot of other things. So at that point of time, I am having an ability to save up money, but also know winter is coming. And I don't have any revenue coming in the winter, so I know the bills would still be there. So I need to make sure that I have enough money saved to start the new season. And that...
It's amazing to me, like even when and I've been doing this for years, but when you just explained it like that, I kept on thinking like people who don't have a business, they think, oh, you did $1 million in revenue. You got to be making like big money and and you're in college, living La Vida Loca. And you go, no, like your parameters around not being broke were I had rent and I had food and everything else was going back into the business. Yeah. That's the life of an entrepreneur, right?
Well, and it wasn't a crazy, nice or fancy place neither in terms of rent. So it was I can't complain, but it was not an expensive place, right? So all I did at that point of time is, I just had one bedroom apartment, and that's it. That's all the money that's all everything I could afford, essentially. And I also couldn't justify spending more money. It's, I'm not sure if it's still a scarcity mindset, but of this anchor of not spending money. That's like, I gotta save. You don't know what's gonna happen. I gotta save. So it still was present at that point of time. The second season began. The job started to get a little bit bigger. The volume increased. Needed more crews. And at that point of time, other problems started to occur in the business, where scheduling and now transferring information to this other crews, because I'm now the one selling the jobs. But now the job gets sold, and if two projects start at the same day, I now somehow need to explain this job to two formats at the same time, at the same day. So I'm starting to have operational problems with systems, because there's no systems, no processes in place.
Right. No scope of work. No.
There's none of that.
Gantt chart on schedule or anything like that.
None of it.
Yeah. Right. Got it.
None of it. I don't know how to do it. Now, all estimates at that point of time are still done on pen and paper. So there's no estimating software. Everything is done. It is a physical contract. The way the scheduling was done is in my living room on a floor. When the client signs the contract, it goes on a floor, and then the next job after this goes after this on a floor. So the floor in my living room, was a portion of it, was never was allowed to be touched by anybody. Right? It's the schedule. The first crew would go here, the second crew would go there, the third crew would go there, and the from the top to the bottom were printed contracts of clients. That's the entire schedule. And I had to keep it in exactly the same way, not to forget about client. And then at one point of time, somebody moved it, and we forgot about a job till we got a call from a client. It went under carpet. So
Classic.
So somebody put a contract under carpet. We forgot about a project till a client called, and I'm like, wow, what happened? The system failed. The system never failed. What happened?
The floor system failed. Shocker. What could go wrong? Oh my God, that's awesome.
The second year, I started a second year of landscaping. So that's it. That the driveway ceiling is essentially fully done. And an interesting thing, as I was exiting the driveway ceiling business, I called my friend and I told him that I'm leaving this business. I'll sell you all the equipment. I don't need you to pay me anything. All you need to do is just pitch in for marketing for the website. I will be doing landscaping we'll be getting leads for landscaping, and you'll be getting leads for driveway ceiling. So I have to pitch in. So this friend decided not to do it. I sold it to another friend, and then the second one ended up selling it back to the first one, because the first one didn't believe at the beginning that it's possible, ended up going and working for the second guy, made money as a salesperson, realized it's real, and ended up buying the business from him.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the first year of landscaping passed. Second one, I realized we needed systems. We started to look for estimating software, which could work online. So we did start to use this system. I started to get more comfortable with scheduling online, and the business continued to scale. And now I started to have other operational problems of how to get orders of materials from crews, which crew goes on which job, how do I manage the materials orders in advance, because we started to deal now with special order items, which I've never dealt before. I only was selling the products which are always available in stock before. And now I started to get into jobs where I would sell a project, the customer would pick a color, I would show up with supplier, it's not in stock. And I didn't even know it's not in stock. I didn't know that there are products which could be a special order. So I started to deal with those issues.
So then you go into year 2, year 3, like how are you scaling? Whether it's staff, people, sales, revenue, job sizes, what is it starting to look like as you kind of move forward into your second, third, fourth year of business?
So it's funny enough, but I probably don't remember much of the data right now, other than the last 3 years. If I were to look and put on a graph, on average, we're scaling about 49% every year. So that was the size of the growth every single year. And a year 3, I started to realize that I now need help with office administration work. So at that point of time, my wife started to help me with some of the other things because it was just getting more and more and more. So I did all the payroll at the beginning. I did all the office administration work. I did all the contracts. I had a bookkeeper to run and do all the tax filing, but all the collection of payments and invoicing I did myself. And obviously paid all suppliers, dealt with all of it. But it was pretty manageable for me for the first 2 years. And in year 3, I realized there's just emails a lot from clients was taking a lot of my time because I'm in a truck driving all the time, and I'm just not able to answer those emails as I'm driving. But those emails are from potential clients to whom I just gave an estimate. I have a list of questions, and I also need to be a driver bringing the materials to a job site. So I have a dump trailer at the back of a pickup truck. I'm driving. I can't be typing an email at the same time, and I have to deliver material. Otherwise, the crew is going to be standing waiting for materials, and I'm going to be paying for it. But also know that the speed of reply is extremely important to the success of the sale. So I need to do both. So I, at that point, I spoke with my wife, and I told her that I've got a brilliant idea. You will come to work in a business, and if you come and you will be working in a business, there's going to be a lot less work for me. So I'll be coming home at 5, and we're going to be having a great time and spending great time together. She still reminds me about this lie. Never came home at 5. not even single time.
Do you even come home at 5 now?
No. I made a story for myself. I thought it's
totally
real.
lied to her. No, it's a story you believed. And
It's a story I believed. I thought it's possible, and she believed in it, and it never happened. So she was working from our home, and she was doing office administrative work in our apartment there. We had a small den, so she put a computer there. She was doing all office admin work.
So by this time, are you done school? So, and it's one thing that sorry, I don't want to but do you want to say your wife's name or?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay, I just didn't. Some people like to keep that stuff private, so I don't want to. Yeah. So she is now in so she was not in the country. She was in Poland back when, and then she immigrates to Canada as a student as well.
Yeah,
correct.
I'll just then tell a story about her. So we started to date at the end of the high school. We dated for 2 months at the end of high school. Then she decides to go to Poland to study because relationships were not serious at that point of time. Canada was not an option for her because there's X amount of time you need to apply for it. And she knew I'm going to Canada, but to apply, to go through the entire process, 6 months period. And she was applying for Poland before we're dating. So when we started the date, she was going there, I was going to Canada. Then after 6 months of dating together virtually, I said, well, it's not really going to work. So you have to move here. I don't want to go back to Kazakhstan. I'm not coming to Poland. So she starts to apply to come here, study English, and then go to college as well. She applies for a visa once, she gets rejected. She applies for a visa second time, she gets rejected. She speaks with a lawyer. Lawyer says the chances of you getting it after 2 rejections, about 5%. She applies third time, she gets rejected. At that point of time, everybody says, there's no fucking way you're kidding. That's it, you're done. She calls me, she's crying, she's saying, well, we gotta break up. It's not gonna happen. And she calls me in the middle of my shift doing driver sealing. And I told her, stop crying, just fucking apply again. Go for it. She goes, applies, she gets accepted.
Took the sentimental approach, eh? Stop fucking crying and apply again.
She applies and she gets it, and nobody cannot believe how the hell she gets approved because actually, she didn't apply the fourth time. What she did is she wrote a letter asking, why did you reject it? I would like to get an explanation. And instead of replying to a rejection, they say yes. They just change their mind. So now
And do you ever find out why? Did they ever say?
No. Well, so in order for you to get to Canada, you need to prove that you have enough financial support to actually do it. You have to have X amount of paperwork. You have to show that you're going to be planning to come back after all of this. And for whatever reason, they didn't believe.
Sorry, to come back to your home country.
Kazakhstan. Yeah, after you're done with school.
So you go for your education and you go back home. Yeah. Which then leads me actually to another question is how do you, at some point in time, you graduate school, You've got your landscape business. How do you end up staying in the country? Hey guys, thanks very much for listening to that conversation. Talk about a journey from scarcity to abundance. The mindset of imagine having nothing and having to figure it out. $2 for the bus. It's an insane story, and thank you for listening. Join us next week. It just gets deeper, but listening to how he scaled, from a business of basically zero, running around spraying, driveways with asphalt sealer to growing a $20 million landscape design build company. You don't do that by accident. So tune in next week and listen to what John has to say. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much. God bless. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or a coworker who could benefit from the conversation, please share the link via text or on social media. Remember, each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. We'll see you next week.
The views, information, or opinions expressed by guests during the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Dwayne Kerrigan and his affiliates. Dwayne Kerrigan or the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast is not responsible for and does not verify the accuracy of any of the information contained in the podcast series. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified professional or specialist before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast.